Welcome back. All right, so another quick news of the day video for all you fine people on the internet. Still Wednesday, still September the 11th. And starting at the top, Bill Daly talking to the press. So this is the week where the NHL and the players talk to the press a ton as we're getting ready for training camp. And Bill Daly admitting the NHL has some concern over deferred salaries. So we've seen the Carolina Hurricanes take some money on the Seth Jarvis contract as a for example, and throw that into a year 9 where it kind of falls into an abyss. It doesn't count as being part of the cap hit, right? So it artificially brings down the salary cap hit, and I know it's not a ton of money, but the NHL has some concerns. And yes, players are not likely going to run for deferrals, but it may be a way for general managers to sign these guys for a lot of money and artificially keep the cap hit down for guys across the board. So the NHL has some concern. It could very well get addressed in the next CBA. Remember, that's coming up in 2026. So we're starting to find reasons that could be wedge issues heading into those negotiations. So sit tight. Most general managers want changes to the LTIR rules. Again, this coming from Bill Daly. And again, this is going to have to be CBA negotiated. So again, we're less than 2 years out from the end of this contract, and these are the issues that we're going to start to see cropping up a little bit more and more. Keep in mind that on October the 1st, of course, the Board of Governors meeting will be taking place. Wait and see if any of this gets discussed there. So changes to LTIR rules. The one that we've discussed the most is that if you have the salary cap still in place for, say, the first round, or in the instance of if you've missed X amount of games before the end of the season on LTIR, then you wouldn't be eligible to play in the first round of the playoffs. I think that's absolutely reasonable. And so we'll see if the NHL decides to make any changes. And again, that'd have to be with the agreement of the NHLPA. It'd have to be baked into the collective bargaining agreement. The league's been hearing some arguments as well. It doesn't sound like there's a ton in terms of pressure on the National Hockey League regarding this one. I know this is one that people talk about a lot, but it's regarding the tax breaks. So in certain locations, you're going to pay a lot less in taxes than you are in others. And the idea being it makes it easier for the teams with a lower tax burden to sign players to long-term extensions and contracts. So it's out there as a topic of discussion, but it doesn't sound like Bill Daly is overly concerned, which means that the NHL is probably not facing a ton of pressure from maybe the teams in the higher tax areas to address this in the next collective bargaining agreement. And it could really be messy, in all honesty, to try to figure out actual real dollars how much more you pay in one location than another, because you can go with the tax side of things, but you could also go with cost of living. Cost of living is going to be much higher in one location than another. And so I think if the NHL was going to bring in the differences in taxes, I think you'd have to look at a lot of different factors, and it could get kind of messy kind of quickly. But either way, let me know your thoughts regarding that issue in the comment section below. Hakanpaa, in one of the most bizarre turns of event this summer, Yanni Hakanpaa signed a 1-year deal with the Toronto Maple Leafs worth $1.47 million. I have no idea what to make of this. The reporting this summer had been the Leafs were going to sign him, and then they were having second thoughts because of his knee issue, which is why Dallas didn't keep him, because his knee's kind of bone on bone, ligaments and all that. And so maybe Toronto's doctors looked and said, nah, he'll be able to play. So either way, it's a contract. It's not a PTO. And Hakanpaa now property of the Toronto Maple Leafs. We'll see how many games he gets into and how far into the season he goes, or if it's going to be another John Klingberg situation. Of course, they bring in Klingberg, and Klingberg ends up on LTIR. Speaking of signing players, a couple of PTOs to talk about in a row here. Florida signing Matt Luff to a PTO, so we're in Florida. Again, Matt Luff's a depth player, just a depth player. The New York Rangers signed Madison Bowie to a PTO. Of course, he's a depth defenseman, so we'll see whether or not he gets a job. Craig Morgan, who of course is based out of Arizona, well known for reporting on the Coyotes, still keeping tabs on Utah. Now that the team's moved from one location to another, doesn't mean you're not a fan anymore. And saying that T. Jaginla is being evaluated. It's a lower body injury. It's considered day-to-day at this point. But it's something to keep an eye on as we get ready for training camp. Again, when the rookies and the recent draft picks get hurt, it's not necessarily a big deal, but it can affect their chances of making it onto the main roster right out of the gate. it can make it so that they end up behind other players in training camp and make it a little more difficult for them to make the team. But again, with Iginla, it's the long-term picture more than short-term. So again, it being considered day-to-day, it's probably not a big deal, but it's something to keep an eye on. The Anaheim Ducks bringing in 3 players to training camp on tryouts. Mark Pesic, who can play up front. He can also play on the back end. Boris Kachuk and Gustav Lindstrom. Lindstrom just played for Anaheim, didn't he? So at any rate, that's a defenseman, a guy who can play forward and defense, and a forward in Boris Kachuk. And so we'll see if any of them end up earning themselves contracts just on PTOs at this time with the Anaheim Ducks. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe in the event you've not done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.